Her hand trembled as she turned over the papers. She knew the date of her coming to Davenant, the 12th of May. It was the day before she had climbed on the roofs. Therefore, the 12th would be the date of the paper she wanted. She unfolded it slowly. Murder in Grove Street. She could scarcely believe her eyes were not playing her false now. As she bent over the paper, her heart seemed to stop beating, then to go on in great suffocating throbs. Presently the mist before her eyes cleared. The letters ceased to dance up and down and grouped themselves into words. Joan read the account to the end. She was very pale. There were faint purple shadows beneath her eyes, new lines of pain round her mouth. So it was true, she said to herself drearily. The scene in the studio, into which she could see from the roofs, was no figment of a disordered imagination. That motionless form on the rug had been a young girl, only a few years older than Joan herself was now, who had been foully done to death. The man whom Joan had seen moving about the room, burning photographs, placing the pistol in the dead girl's hand, was, there could be no doubt of it, the murderer, trying to conceal his work. But who was he? That was the question that had driven the colour from Joan's cheeks, that had beaten upon her brain with maddening reiteration throughout the long past night. To this the paper, as Joan read it, offered no answer. Joan laid the papers together and stood up. Her limbs felt cramped and stiff as she moved to the door. She felt giddy. After all, what had she learned? That horror of her childhood was a ghastly reality, certainly, but the question that had tormented her through the long hours of the night remained unanswered. She left the museum and walked through the quiet old Bloomsbury streets and squares, asking herself again whether it was possible that she should recognize a man whom she had only seen for a few brief seconds under such different conditions 10 years ago. She knew that in other circumstances she would not have been inclined to place reliance on such a recognition. But in her own case, the whole scene had been so imprinted upon her memory that she fancied she could recall it precisely as it happened, correct in every detail. Even the grey eyes of the man who had looked at her for a moment over the window-sill, were they the same eyes that had met hers last night, in the library, at the Towers? She shivered as she drew her veil more closely over her face. As she neared the noise and bustle of Oxford Street, she paused, regardless of the passers-by. It was 10 years since the tragedy occurred. In all those years, was it not possible, nay, was it not most probable, that something had been discovered, that the murderer had been arrested, even if for the time he had managed to evade justice? She went on again, walking with quick, uneven steps, turning along Oxford Street to the right, heedless alike of the tempting display in the shop windows, of the jostling of the passers-by. At Tottenham Court Road she had perforce to wait while a great stream of traffic passed her. On the other side of the street there was a motor bus waiting. Seeing her glance, the conductor vociferated loudly, "Bond Street, Marble Arch, Queen's Road." The words recalled 1,000 memories. Grove Street lay not far from the Marble Arch, at the back of Hinton Square. She had a fancy that if she got out at Marble Arch, she could find her way to the Grove Street Mews, just as she had done in her childish days. Mechanically, she threaded her way across the street and seated herself in the omnibus.